Hello, my name is Shafan Patton, and I am going to complete the final assignment for Course Education 444. My favorite topics. When you say favorite, I'm looking at the most impactful, how helpful it was, how much I can apply it, how much I've learned from it. So that's what I would say. Um, or that's what I would define it as my favorite. So my favorites would be the ACEs training, the persona dials, culture and identity, for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and focus on those three. So the first one that I want to talk about, as far as describing how impactful it was and strategies I've learned from it for ACEs training. ACEs training was definitely heart-filled for me. It was very emotional. As I saw that you were able to pick that up in your comments when I completed the assignment. So I kind of just want to quick talk about the questions, the ACEs test that we had did. This was like the first assignment, and in my mind, when we first did this assignment, as the first assignment, I'm like, oh Lord, this class is about to be heavy. It's about to dig into stuff. It was almost like psychology, but I really liked how that started off the course because, for one, it set the tone, and two, it really gave me just another way to self-reflect and show how big my passion is for teaching, because I do feel like, as a teacher, not only is it my duty to teach the child so they're able to learn educationally wise, but also to apply it in their everyday lives. And that's also a part of it's all attached as a functional system, as parental involvement and engagement, environments at home, at school, at church, their own personal traditions and cultures, ethnicity. And so we all just tie it in together, and I'm a big piece of that puzzle as far as a teacher and teaching them how to be young men and young ladies. Again, further than just math and reading, but teaching them how it'll apply to the real world in hands on experience. So the ACEs test really put things in perspective for me as to not to focus on what the child is doing and but why the child is doing it. It's geared for me. It's geared more towards their emotions and their reactions to things, and their behavior emotionally. So, like for example, the first question on the ACE test is: did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you afraid that they may physically hurt you? Um, so just that question alone, first of all, it's like loaded, right? Um, but it made me just think back on, did my mom ever cuss at me? Did my dad ever raise his hand? Or I feel like, as a parent, if you lift your hand to your child and they flinch, you're obviously hitting them too much. Um, it should never be like that. That shows that the relationship has changed. Um, but that's just one thing. And to give another example as regards to the ACEs test, I do apologize if this is a little too um, vulgar, or depending on your own personal experience. I don't mean to trigger, but this definitely could be a trigger. But my sister, my younger sister, she graduated in psychology and she started working with troubled youth. And it was a 3-year-old girl who was going home. Her mom and dad had split custody, so they wasn't together. They're separated. So she would go home to her mom's home, and she would act out and kick and punch, and she just had this horrible attitude. And instead of mom focusing on why she was doing that. She focused on what she was doing. And so that changed mom's reaction. And unfortunately, the baby girl was acting out because dad was molesting her, to say the least. So that just kind of like puts a bigger perspective on things, not just as a parent, but as a teacher, as my role, as my duty. I do feel like it is my duty to not just teach the students, but protect them, to cover them, to make sure they feel safe, to develop that relationship and build that rapport, to make sure they are getting what they need, educational wise, professional wise, relationship wise, emotionally, socially, cultural wise, as far as diversity. I mean, there's so many different areas and components versus them just coming in and you're teaching them a math problem. I think it goes so much deeper than that. So yeah, that's that first topic was extremely, I guess, touchy for me, and as well as it keeps you in touch with your feelings. I feel like that was good for me, and it should be for every teacher, because it keeps you human. It keeps you realizing that these are children that are just looking up to someone, who's looking for role models, who's just trying to feel accepted and be loved, and we are a part of that. The next topic was persona dials. The persona dials were very impactful because it's a different strategy to explain diversity and empathy for sure. That's a really big trait that you want children and students to have, is empathy, because it limits behavior issues, it limits toxic relationships between them and their peers, their superiors, like their family, their parents, teachers. I feel like it helps them understand and it gives them a way to express themselves, versus just using verbal language. And I also feel like it's a way to teach them between right and wrong, or how someone else may feel. Again, empathy. I think it will limit bullying as well. So just with the persona dials, bringing that dial into the classroom, that dial could be different, have feelings on different things or issues that bothers them in the classroom. I think a really good strategy is using the playground, or how something was done incorrectly, and that persona dial is able to communicate that as a member of the classroom, and to say, this hurt my feelings because of this. When people does this, this happens. It's just another way for a child to understand when we should have thought about something a little bit further before we just took our actions into our own hands. It helps make better choices as well. So that's why I felt like the persona dial was pretty impactful, and strategic in teaching children empathy and to make better choices. My third topic, that was one of my favorite, is culture and identity. That also hit home for me as well personally. I feel like teaching is all personal. I feel like it's a passion thing, and you're dealing with whatever they come with. So I feel like to be a teacher, you have to have a pretty big heart. You have to be able to be flexible, do some self reflection constantly, want to make sure you brush up on your skills professionally, educationally, to make sure you're giving them and providing them the very best education, especially if you are teaching in an urban community. That can go a long way for students who may lack different things than other people, especially for minorities. I feel like cultural identity is super impactful and helpful regardless of what ethnicity, tradition, culture, or race you are. Because, like you mentioned in my comments, how when I did this assignment, how there are children younger and younger and younger, feeling like they are different sex, or they may feel different, and it's up to us to love and accept them. And I have to agree 100% with that, especially as far as culture. My culture may be different from another person's culture. And who am I to look down on them or provide any negative feedback? They were raised a certain way, just like I was raised a certain way. So I may feel like the way I was raised was correct. That doesn't mean the way they were raised were not correct. So I think culture and identity is extremely important as far as diversity in the classroom. And again, that's where the persona DAO plays in a huge role in diversity, to help other students understand that everyone is not the same, and that's actually the greatest thing. So those are the three topics that I would really say hit very important to me. I feel like I can use that in the classroom. I'm able to celebrate that and teach about that, so that students are constantly growing on how to empathize with other children who are different, who may feel different, who may want to be different, but regardless are accepted and loved. So I actually think all three of those tie in together: the ACE test, the persona DAOs, and the culture and identity assignments. It's all just making sure everyone is being educated, loved, and accepted. And with that, teaching them how to do that to others as well. So I think those three are really important and impactful, and I'm able to apply that